Shalom. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahabushai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, because those are the men who I learned this truth from through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahabushai. Yahweh is the true name of the God of Israel. Yahabushai is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but his one and only true name is Yahabushai. And pretty much, you got TCG Ministries. They're probably the worst for false prophets on the planet Earth right now, because they pretty much just did a whole complete 360 in the doctrine, which, they look like agents, all right? Whether they sold out or not, it's clear that they don't have the Holy Spirit. They don't have the gift of faith. And if they don't repent, then the Most High is just going to kill and destroy them. All right? And we don't have to feel bad for men that know what they're doing, that leave the truth. They want to teach their own thing. They want to say that the so-called white man got the true Hebrew, but men that look like them, that come out of one West, they don't know the Hebrew, I'd rather go with my own people than to go with devils. All right? So without further ado, this lesson is going to be about a woman becomes an adult when she catches her period. All right? And in the ancient world, you had women that were 12 years old that were considered women. A damsel is a young woman of marriageable age. What makes a woman of marriageable age, even though she's young? When she catches her period, she enters into adulthood. No different than a teenager that enters into puberty. That's a man or a woman becoming an adult. All right, the woman, she catches her period, her ass starts getting bigger, she starts getting bigger titties. Not to be vulgar, but a lot of you just so westernized and stupid, you shouldn't be teaching the Bible. All right, you can't be reading the Bible with a westernized way of thinking, a westernized logic way of reasoning. The scriptures say what it says, and the Bible is an Eastern book with Eastern customs as well. A lot of the law, statutes, and commandments is Eastern customs. All right? The scriptures talk about when a woman, she passed the flower of her age. What's the flower of her age? When she catches her first menstrual cycle. That means that she's ready to give birth. That means that she's ready to be a man's wife. All right? It's that simple. Obviously, we're not living in times like that as far as the Western Hemisphere, because according to the so-called white man, which is not in the Bible, by the way, you're an adult when you're 18. You can drink when you're 21. What are laws on that in the Bible? So the way our people's living now in the Western Hemisphere, especially, they're not living like how they was during the ancient world. All right? So let me show you some examples in the scriptures, because you got a lot of camps and you got a lot of people that bear false witness. They spread a lot of hate, gossip, spreading rumors, and they try to call GMS, they try to call our leaders, rapists. They try to call us pedophiles, all type of things, but that's far from the truth. We're just teaching what's in the Bible, ancient manners and customs. All right? Whether you get offended or not, that's on you. We really don't give a damn, to be honest with you. We're just doing what the Most High says. So this is Mark chapter 5. I'm waiting for this thing to load up. Hate when it does it. All right, this is Mark chapter 5. Let's go all the way down here. Mark 5 and 39. All right. Now, this is an account of one of Yahabushai's miracles. This little girl named Thalia, she was dead, and one of Yahabushai's miracles was that he told her to rise up. All right? Mark 5 and 39. And when he was come in, he saith unto them, Why make ye this ado and weep? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. It says, and they laughed him to scorn. But when he had put them all out, he taketh the father and the mother of the damsel. What's a damsel? Let's go into it. I already know what it is. It's a woman of marriageable age, but this is the Greek word for damsel.
Strong's G 3813. Paideon. Paideon.
Let's see. Damsel. So you gotta watch the blue letter. Blue letter be going off. Alright? A damsel is a woman of marriageable age, a young woman of marriageable age. For an example, Mary, the famous Mary, Yahushua mother, who the world ignorantly called Jesus Christ, she was a damsel. She was a young woman of marriageable age. Alright? Scholars say she had to have been about 13 or 14 years old, because that was a normal thing. Even today, you know, you'll see teenagers, even women younger than that. I've heard stories of 9 and 10-year-olds getting pregnant before. But how is that possible? Because she caught her period. Her body matured and advanced enough to where she catches her menstrual cycle, meaning what? She has entered into adulthood, all right? And now she can have kids. She could beg seed for a man. Because when a woman is pregnant, she's holding that seed, that man's seed, the sperma. Because your nationality is determined by the seed of your father. Right? Continuing on, it says, and them that were with him, and entering in where the damsel was lying. And he took the damsel by the hand and said unto her, thou Talata, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but you see how it's spelled there. Kumai, which is being interpreted, damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And straightway the damsel arose and walked, for she was of the age of 12 years old. So this is a grown woman that's 12 years old. Why do y'all ignore what's in the scriptures? Are we just going to read the scriptures with a westernized way of thinking and be like, oh, no, that was back then? But I mean, it's in the scriptures. We can't ignore what's in the scriptures, right? A damsel is a young woman of marriageable age. That's what it is. I don't care what it says in the Greek. In the Hebrew, it'll tell you that. All right? If I'm not mistaken, the Hebrew word is either batwala or alama. I always get them mixed up. But you can read Isaiah 7 and I believe it's 14. All right? But anyways, it says, continuing on, it says, and they were astonished with great astonishment. Let me read this in the NLT version, all right? Because the NLT, it'd be cutthroat. This is Mark 5 and 39. It says, and he went inside and asked, why all this commotion and weeping? This child isn't dead, she's only asleep. So when you die, you're asleep. Your spirit is separated from your body. Your spirit is in the spirit world. Your body is going to decay. It goes on to say, though, it says the child isn't dead, she's asleep, right? The crowd laughed at him, Yahushua, but he made them all leave, and he took the girl's father and mother and his 3 disciples into the room where the girl was lying. Holding her hand, he said to her, Talata Quam, which means little girl, get up. And the girl, who was 12 years old, immediately stood up and walked around. They were overwhelmed and totally amazed. Yahushua gave them strict orders not to tell anyone what had happened, and then he told them to get her something to eat. Now, notice how I went to the Greek word for damsel, and it pretty much said like a child, right? But in this case, let me actually go to Isaiah 7, because this was a prophecy about Mary, Yahushua's mother, giving birth to Yahushua, because she actually got pregnant by Joseph. They had sex. They was espoused. He wanted to put her away privily because he didn't follow the law, statutes, and commandments in Deuteronomy 22nd chapter, the having a ceremony, the token of her virginity, and the 50 shekels of silver. He pretty much rushed ahead in the process. So he actually was going to leave Mary, referring to Joseph, Yahushua, biological father. But the angel came to him and said, no, take your wife. It's okay. All right? So Isaiah 7:14, therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. All right. Let's go into this word virgin. Ilama, that's the word for virgin. Yep, a virgin. A young woman of marriageable age, made or newly married. All right. So if you're a young woman and a woman of marriageable age, what does that mean? That means you're a woman. So when you read Mark 5 and 41 or 40, the scriptures call her a damsel. I just went into the Hebrew word for that. All right. Even though it said virgin, but it said damsel as well. All right. Let's go down here. Let's go down here. Yep, she was of the age of 12 years old. Now, this is what I want to do real quick. This is what I want to do. Let's I gotta find this in the Hebrew. I don't like the Greek. I gotta find this in the Hebrew. Let me just type in damsel. See what pops up. Damsel. All right, Genesis 24 and 14, referring to Rebecca, right? All right, let's go down here. Genesis. Okay, here we go. Damsel, right? Strong's H52. Strong's H5291. Na'ara. Let's go down here. This is the word for damsel. And it says, well, girl, damsel, female servant. Let's go down here. Of a young woman, marriageable age. All right, that's all I need out of that. So if you're a young woman of marriageable age, what constitutes marriage in the scriptures? What consummates it? Sexual intercourse. After the man pays the 50 shekels of silver, he has the ceremony, and then he consummates the marriage by what? Sexual intercourse with his wife. All right. So now if you read in Mark 5, and it says that this woman, right, Dalata, as you can see her name in Mark 5 and 41, it calls her a damsel, and then it says she's 12 years old. That means she was 12 years old, and she was a young woman of marriageable age. Why? Because she called her period before. I mean, like, what's so hard to understand about that? So that's all I needed out of that. Let's check this out. Because people like throwing that around. Oh, GMS, they teach a rape doctrine. Look, ain't no such thing as no rape doctrine. This is just an Eastern custom, and this is just normal, honestly. We ain't walking around getting 10-year-old numbers for you dumbass, stupid-ass people. All right? We just reading the scriptures. The scripture says what it says. We're not emotional about it. It's in the Bible, and that's it. So this is what I typed in. When do women normally catch their first period, right? It says girls typically get their period between the ages of 10 and 16. So you know what that means? As soon as that woman gets her period, that means that she's a damsel. She's a young woman of marriageable age. All right? That means she's a grown-ass woman. Does that mean, even though that it's in the Bible, you can go and do this now? Hell no. Retard. Of course you can't do that. All right? Who the hell is doing that? Ain't no Great Millstone member doing no shit like this. All right? We just reading to you what's in the scriptures. And like I said, the Bible, as brothers say it a lot, I'm even laying back and with them. This is an Eastern custom. Me right now, I prefer my woman, honestly, to be over 25. Me, myself, I'm 33 years old. A lot of women that's young right now, because of the society we live in and the corruption of Western society, a lot of these women are super immature when they're 18, 19. Even though they're considered grown women by law, meaning that you can legally be with them, they're immature. All right? Anyways, so that's what I typed in. So it says girls typically get their first period between the ages of 10 and 16, with the average age being around 12 to 12.5 years old. Doesn't that link up with the scriptures? Mark 5 verses 40 on down. Who's making this up? Come on. However, every individual's timeline varies, and starting as early as 9 or as late as 15 is completely normal. This is the AI overview. This is crazy. It says your first period usually occurs about 2 to 2.5 years after your breasts first begin to develop. Why? Because they're becoming grown women. Their bodies is maturing into women. It goes on to say, other common physical and hormonal signs that your body is preparing for its first period include public and underarm hair. Growth typically begins a few months to a year before menstruation. Vaginal discharge. All right, I don't need to read all that shit, but I mean, you get the point. All right. It says, I'll check this out. It says, you should consult a doctor. Your period has not started by the age of 15. You have not shown any other signs of puberty by age 13. Why? Because that's the normal age. A girl gets her first period before the age of 8. Because a lot of the foods that these women are eating, they may get their period even before 9 years old. And that's disgusting. That's not necessarily supposed to happen. All right? But because of all these hormones and the bad shit that they put in the food in Western culture, you know, people's hormones and their bodies is not balanced. All right? It's not growing at a normal weight, how the Most High intended it to be. So because of the hormones and everything that's in the food, you know, these young women, they're getting periods even before 9, before they're supposed to normally get it. All right? Like I said, that don't mean you could date them and stuff like that. That's disgusting for you stupid ass people. So now let's look at this, right? I typed in, and trust me, I really didn't want to do this video, but I just got to do it for my channel. So I typed in, a woman became a woman at what age in ancient Israel? Let's just let the AI talk. In ancient Israel and early Israelite tradition, I hate that word Jewish, a girl officially became a woman at age 12 and 1 day. All right? That's why I read Mark chapter 5 verses 40 on down. It says, a girl officially became a woman at age 12 and 1 day, provided she showed physical signs of puberty. Because what's puberty? A man or a woman entering into adulthood. Technically, you know, when you so-called become a teenager, that's you really becoming an adult technically. All right? So it says, the milestone marked the transition from a minor to a young adult, making her legally responsible for religious commandments and eligible for betrothal and marriage. Come on, you can't make this up. This is how it was in ancient Israel. You know? Look, the type of shit you see now, 30-year-olds living with their mother, you know, women that's fucking 50-year-old virgins. You think you had shit like that going on in the ancient world? That woman would be a waste. She would be a disgrace. Women would laugh at her. You're fucking 50 with no kids? Come on, man. This society is fucked up. Let's go down here. It says the transition to adulthood involves specific, well-defined stages in ancient Israelite law and culture. Age 11 to 12, known as the transitional phase. A girl was viewed, right, as a minor showing initial signs of maturity and had a unique status regarding religious vows. Age 12. Once a girl turned 12 and developed 2 pubic hairs, that ancient metric for the beginning of puberty and biological maturity, she was legally recognized as an adult. This is how it was in the ancient world. No GMS member, including our leaders, ever dealt with so-called underage women according to the so-called white man constitution and his regulations. All right? We're simply just read it in the Bible. This is how it was in ancient Israel, where we were sovereign and independent. We was able to keep more of our laws. We've been scattered through the 4 corners of the earth. We're under grace. Obviously, we're not living life to the fullest, meaning we're not keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments. That's another reason why we're under grace through the blood and sacrifice of Yahushua. All right? You can't ignore what's in the Bible. Let's go down here. It says age 12.5. After 6 months in her adult status, she was legally considered fully mature. By this time, many young women were typically betrothed or married, as this was the societal norm. This was the societal norm back in ancient Israel. What's the problem? If it's in the scriptures, what the hell is the problem? That's because guys don't believe, right? It says, while society and religious law recognize her as an adult at age 12, marriage customs varied across antiquity. It says most young women were betrothed in their early teens. Betrothed meaning engaged to be married or promised to be married, because you had arranged marriages back then. Women wasn't walking around, oh, I think he's cute, so he has to be the guy for me. No, women didn't have that decision, because when they have that decision, look at all the single moms all around the world. It ain't just America. Look at that. That's because you let a woman make a decision. No, her father was supposed to make that decision. She's supposed to be in an arranged marriage. Things are supposed to be handled according to the laws, statutes, and commandments under the father's authority. All right? It says most young women were betrothed in their early teens, and physical maturity was considered the prerequisite. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I don't really care. For legal majority rather than the strict chronological birthday alone. Exactly. Oh, this person is 18, so they're an adult. Oh, they 21, they could drink now. That's not in the scriptures. These are new things. All right. So that's it with that. I just want to hurry up, get this over with, because I'm sick of talking about this topic. It's in the scriptures, but like I said, you know, this is like a new channel where I ain't really discussed this, so I got to discuss it. So this is another thing I typed in, young damsel in the Bible. The phrase young damsel generally refers to an unmarried young woman or maiden in the Bible. Several specific young damsels play notable roles in the scriptures, ranging from key figures in the Old Testament narratives to miracle recipients in the New Testament. Key biblical damsels: Rebecca, Genesis the 24th chapter, which I read that, right? Or I went into the word damsel in Genesis 24 and 14. A beautiful young damsel encountered by Abraham's servant at a well. When the servant asked for water, she was generously watered his camels, proving she was divinely chosen bride for Isaac. Let's go down here. This individual, right, just read about his daughter. It says Jairus' daughter in Mark 5. That's from verses 39 on down to like 42. A 12-year-old damsel who tragically died, Yahushua went to her home, took her by the hand, and spoke the famous, what they say in Aramaic phrase, Dalitha Kum, meaning, little girl, I say to you, get up, bringing her back to life. Here's another example. It says Ashbahag, right? 1 Kings, the 1st chapter. A fair damsel from Shunem, she was chosen to take care for and keep King David warm during his old age. I think I got that, right? Yeah, let me read a little bit about that. David in old age, when David was about to die. This is how they knew King David was about to die. Because, first of all, David, he had 18 wives. He had multiple children. And so, what king or what man don't like a new young wife? So that's how they knew David was getting ready to die. So this is 1 Kings 1 and 1. It says, now King David was old and shrunken in years, and they covered him with clothes, but he got no heat. You know, your body naturally is supposed to give off body heat. So the fact that he getting cold like that, he about to be out of here. You know, he about to go to spirit world. So it says, verse 2, wherefore his servant said unto him, let there be sought for my lord the king a young virgin, right? A young woman of marriageable age and never had sex with a man, right? And let her stand before the king and let her cherish him, because a wife is what? Or a woman is a female servant. That's literally what the definition is. It says, before the king, and let her cherish him, and let her lie in thy bosom, that my lord the king may get heat. So they sought for a fair damsel throughout all the coasts of Israel, and found Abishag the Shunammite, and brought her to the king. And the damsel was very fair, meaning very beautiful, and cherished the king and ministered to him, but the king knew her not, meaning he ain't have sex with her. All right? Let's read that in the NLT. 1 Kings 1, I just want to speed this up, verse 2. So his advisors told him, let us find a young virgin to wait on you and look after you, my lord. She will lie in your arms and keep you warm. So they searched throughout the land of Israel for a beautiful girl, and they found Abishag from Shunem and brought her to the king. The girl was very beautiful, and she looked after the king and took care of him. But the king had no sexual relations with her. Why? Because he was an older man, he was shirking in years, and, you know, probably just wasn't working no more, if you catch my drift. All right? Let's go down here. Acts the 12th chapter. An individual named Rhonda. It says a young servant damsel in the New Testament. When Peter was miraculously freed from prison and knocked on the door of the house where the believers were praying, Rhonda was so excited to hear his voice that she ran back inside to tell others without even opening the door for him. So that was a young woman of marriageable age. So these are examples of damsel. Why am I reading this? Because when you read Mark, the 5th chapter, referring to Jairus' daughter, Talitha, right? She was 12 years old, and she was called a virgin or a damsel, a woman of marriageable age. All right, so she was considered an adult. She was considered a woman at 12 years old. So that's the point, you know. Instead of you guys scoffing and marking that great millstone, how about you analyze what we're saying, see if it's in the scriptures, so you know that we're not lying. Do the research, and then that's it. We don't read these ancient manners and customs and try to keep, you know, specific cutthroat ones in a society we're not sovereign and independent in. This is why we're under grace. All right? We're just reading the scriptures and explaining how it was back then. All right? So I think that's it. Lord willing, you was edified by the lesson. Shalom.